first phase started in 1565 to 1581. The Spaniards captured trading vessels in Bohol and eventually invaded Brunei to eliminate Bornean pretension in the country. The second phase lasted from 1581 to 1596. The Spaniards started building forts in Maguindanao in order to extract tribute from the Muslims and to detach their alliance from the Ternate. The third phase began from 1599 to 1600. The counterattacks of people from Maguindanao to Spanish forts, the Dutch helped the Muslims to defeat the Spaniards. The fourth phase lasted from 1635 to 1663 in Zamboanga. It is about the broken treaty between the Spaniards and Muslims due to the assassination of the Spanish ambassador. In 1663, there was an interlude for 50 years. The Sultanates continued to build territories and Muslims started to trade freely. The Hezbollah were willing to rebuild Zamboanga, but with the order of King Philip V for the retortification of Zamboanga, the long peace between Spain and Muslim Sultanates was broken.
The Spaniards returned to Zamboanga in 1718 when the Spanish king issued orders for occupation and fortification. This brought about the new power realignments among the sultanates in the Philippines. The Spanish initiated the fifth stage while Muslims had unsuccessful attempts in dislodging the Spanish forces. After 2 decades, in the time where human lives and properties from both sides have already been lost in the war, the Spanish decided to change their strategy and decided to bring in Christian missionaries into the Muslim realms in exchange for commercial relations and an alliance, although the results were the opposite of what they hoped for. The Spanish felt that the sultans might have been angered from their last tactic and decided to bring in an ambassador under Antonio Perez Gil to the new Sulu Sultan. He asked him if he will be ratifying the cession of Balabac to the Spaniards that was made by Shahab-ud-Din back in 1705. The new Sultan wanted to honor and establish the commercial relations with the Spaniards and asked licenses to be issued to his subjects for the purpose of trade and would be honored by the Spaniards.
Throughout the war, hundreds of Muslims and Christians were captured and sold as slaves in Makassar and Java, and the Muslims continued to raid the Visayas. After the failed attack of Zulus and Iranun in the fort from 1720 to 1721, the Spaniards changed the program of evangelization for the sultanates to accept the preaching of Christianity in exchange for commercial relations and treaties of alliances.
The final phase of the fifth stage of the Moro Wars is nearing, when Azim-ud-Din, the Sultan of Sulu from 1735 to 1748, was captured and held at Fort Santiago. During this time, the Spaniards set an army of 1,900 soldiers to engage in Jolo, continuously fighting for 3 days straight. In 1753, the captured Sultan suggested that his sister, Pangyan Bangkilang, and his daughter, Fatima, will go to Jolo and talk to Muiz-ud-Din to convince him to free the captured Christians and begin peace talks between the Zulus and the Spaniards. Meanwhile, the Maranaos and Iranuns are taking advantage of the reduced hostilities and peace talks between the Zulus and the Spaniards, bombarding Spanish camps and settlements left and right in the Visayan and Mindanao region. The peace talks between the two groups have led into an agreement that all Christian captives that was guarded by the Tirans are to be returned to the Spaniards, and all captured datus, including the Sultan's sons, were to be sent back to Jolo. In addition to that, all of the group that opposes the Spaniards is to be considered their enemy. This has led that all hostilities between the two groups will be kept to a minimum. In 1757, even with the peace between the Zulus and the Spaniards, the Iranuns and the Maranaos continuously attacked the Spaniards. Accounts and different reports said that it was estimated that these raids reduced the Spanish tributes by around 100,000. The Zulus, even with their agreements with the Spaniards, has kept their hostility to a minimum and was not participating on the defense against their brethren.
The impact of the Moro-Spanish Wars in today's state of Muslim Filipinos is obvious. The Muslims are still in the minority. Even though both Christians and Muslims were captured and treated like slaves, it could be because the Muslims were not conquered and evangelized by the Spaniards, resulting into them becoming a minority. The situation of the Muslims today are the result of historical forces, the consequences of disastrous proportions to the Muslim people in the Philippines. In spite of that, the Muslim resistance that occurred is still an essential part of the heritage of the entire Filipino and of our nation.